Hi, this is Nick Dawson from Talkhouse, and you're listening to the latest episode of Nobody's Ever Asked Me That. It's the spin-off series of the Talkhouse podcast where I talk to filmmakers, musicians, and writers and ask them questions they've never heard before in an interview in an effort to discover a different side of them and understand them better. Today's guests are the actors Mandy, Patinkin and Kathryn Grody, who met working together on a stage play in 1978 and have been together ever since. Over the past 4 decades or so, Patinkin has established himself as a major force on screen with indelible roles in movies like The Princess Bride, Yentl and Ragtime, and shows such as Chicago Hope, Criminal Minds, and Homeland, while he's also had a hugely successful career as a musical performer on Broadway. Grody had a supporting role in Warren Beatty's Reds and played one of the title characters opposite Diane Keaton and Carol Kane in Joyce Chopra's 1990 comedy drama The Lemon Sisters, and also wrote and starred in the one-woman play A Mum's Life, an autobiographical portrait of the trials and tribulations of motherhood developed from her book of the same name. While Patinkin has primarily enjoyed most of the spotlight over the course of their relationship, that changed in 2020 when Grody and Patinkin's son Gideon began filming his parents during lockdown and posting the videos to TikTok. Quickly, the internet fell in love with the pair as they danced, bickered, cuddled, struggled with questions on pop culture, and encouraged people to go vote in the presidential election. They were irrepressible, unfiltered, hilarious, adorable, and deeply relatable, and they rapidly built a following in the millions. The reason I got to speak with them recently is that the Mandy and Kathryn cinematic universe has now expanded beyond TikTok with Seasoned, which delivers a lightly fictionalized version of their real-life relationship in episodic form. The show's pilot, which just premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, joins them as they spend their wedding anniversary navigating a terrible play, endlessly talkative thespians, a missed dinner reservation, and the hell of finding somewhere, anywhere, to eat on a frantically busy New York City night. Before talking to Grody and Patinkin, I was honestly a little nervous. They always seem utterly delightful, but the numerous questions that I draw on for this podcast were written to be for one-on-one conversation. So would they work as well for 2 people? Also, would we be able to get Mandy and Kathryn each set up with their own pair of headphones so the audio would be pristine? Well, the answer to that second question was no, and you hear the 3 of us trying to troubleshoot that issue right at the start. But really, that became immaterial as soon as we started talking, as I instantly realized this was an experience I could truly just sit back and enjoy. Usually, I tease what's to come in these episodes, but in this instance, I'm going to forego that and just let you luxuriate in the pure pleasure of listening to Kathryn Grody and Mandy Patinkin doing their thing, with all the wonderful immediacy and unpredictability that entails.
We have the way to do that. But you know what? Put yours in, the plug.
Yeah, and you can be on one and I can be on the other.
I'll be on one ear and you'll be
Amazing.
This will make us very close together.
You may have to, hug her. I'm sure you have a system.
Wait, this doesn't go in here, man.
Oh.
No.
So you have the wrong kind.
I have the wrong kind, Nick.
Totally fine. We'll do it old school. So if you can both hear me.
We hear you
We
fine.
hear you fine.
Amazing. Okay. So I usually talk to one person, but you are a unique unit, and it was impossible to pass up the opportunity to talk to both of you.
No, we definitely know you're not part of this family.
So one of the things I'm always interested with people is, do you have a morning routine, like each of you individually or collectively? Is there a rhythm to the start of your day?
Yeah. I get up 3 times during the night to pee and put my CPAP back on. And then I sometimes shit like one of those times in the night. And then I hope to have at least 3 more shits before noon.
That's just so interesting for everybody. Really.
Has anybody answered the question that way?
No.
Not exactly like that.
Yeah, well, that's...
He's a morning...
I think you got a lot of people that don't tell you the truth then. You know?
Well, exactly.
I think Mandy is inherently a morning person and I'm a night person. Mm-hmm. I remember years ago sitting next to one of those sleep experts saying, I hate to do this to you, but... And she said, are you a lark or an owl? And I said, I'm an owl that really envies larks. Mm-hmm. You know, I love the idea of getting up but I just was in Singapore for 2 weeks and everything's changed. So I'm getting up a lot earlier and joining him on his morning 2 to 4 mile walk. So he likes to eat breakfast first thing. I do intermittent fasting. I eat breakfast at 11. He eats it at 8.
I lied. I don't have any bathroom rituals whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I did see you say on TikTok once that you don't shit either, which
I don't
is
shit.
very.
I learned that from Alan Arkin. He told me he didn't take piss or shit.
Yeah,
ever.
right. Superhuman, a whole different species.
Let's start over.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear about this walk because I love being in nature. I love walks. So tell me sort of what the walk
Where are
gives.
you, Nick? Where are we talking?
I'm in Brooklyn now. You're upstate, is that right?
Yeah, we're upstate, but we also live on the Upper West Side. In New York City, we love the Riverside Walk. Down from like 116th down. I like it in the trees. He likes it by the water. And I love the High Line Walk. And up here, we have really a lot of gorgeous options.
We walk together, but we're usually about, I don't know, a good football field apart or 2. The reason being, she listens to podcasts
or music,
and I run concerts. I sing songs so that I don't forget my words, and I have about 13 hours worth of words I have to try to keep in the brain. And then we turn around, and my stride is bigger than hers, so it only takes me moments to be
400 years ahead of me.
100 feet ahead.
Yeah.
And that's that we get along fine that way for 47 years.
Amazing.
If we were together talking, we wouldn't be with you right now.
Well, sometimes we would, hon. It depends.
When?
We have had enjoyable conversations in our 47 years. Last night, enjoyable conversation.
What was it about? When I was sitting there weeping and you were holding my hand?
But then we got
back.
That's
enjoyable to you?
Oh, my God, Nick. Really?
Well, hopefully, I'm enjoying myself. I think what people love about you is that you are very specifically yourselves. And so that was one of the things I wanted to ask about. When you're talking about, Kathryn, you're getting up later, when you go for walks, you're in different places, different lengths of stride. How do those differences, how do those different rhythms, how do they work? Did you have to really find out how things mesh together well? Or was that something that just happened from the start?
They don't mesh together well. We are.
They do sometimes mesh together.
Well, not today so far.
No, but
I gotta tell the truth.
It depends on what period we're in our lives.
Oh, that's that thing. I don't know how to stop that.
The ding.
Gideon told me once how to do that on an
But don't waste our time.
Do you hear the ding every time? Is that annoying?
I do, but it's the stark realism. It's a comment on our times.
Okay, I don't
Nick,
know.
are you British? Is there a British thing?
I am British, and I have that weird mid-Atlantic accent from having lived here for about 20 years. So I'm deeply ambivalent about the way that my voice sounds.
I love the way you sound
silly.
Great. And I'm a, whatever they call a person that really loves England. So our first son was born there. Our rhythms depend on different periods of our life. When we were both single and doing off-Broadway plays in beginning, we were very enmeshed and did everything at the same time. Then we had a baby, and that changed everything, and our rhythms were quite different. And
we're not getting along today because I wanted to blacktop the driveway, and she doesn't want to blacktop the driveway.
I don't want to pave paradise and parking friggin' lot.
Yeah, so I said to her, are you going to live your life off of Joan Baez and what's her name?
Well, you didn't remember
Joni Mitchell's songs. Is that how we're going to decide what we do or not, what lyric they sang in 1960? And basically the answer was yes.
Yeah.
So we are not blacktopping the driveway at the moment.
Oh, great. I didn't even know that.
Well, what she does is she goes like, I just don't want to do it this year. I can't stand the smell of it. And then we're having a lot of people over at different times. And I really want it to look nice. I just, and so she wins.
Sometimes I win and sometimes I don't. Sometimes we compromise. Anyway,
regardless, I don't have the energy.
Honey, we both like to walk. We both like to hike. We both like.
We often do it separately because, in all honesty, I wake up at like 6 in the morning. I usually wake up at about 2:45 in the evening after I go to bed at about 8 o'clock, right? It's about 2:45 in the evening. Then I pee and then I go back to bed. And then I get up on a good one. If I put my eye mask on because light comes in, I'll wake up at about 6:30, 7:30 is really great. Last night, I couldn't sleep from 2:30 something. So I went down and did the dishes.
That's good.
He's great at cleaning a kitchen.
I love cleaning the kitchen. And then I got back to sleep. So I slept till 7:30. And then what did we do? Then we just
well, we were ready to go, but we couldn't get
then we
going.
had a meeting. Yeah, we had a meeting with the blacktop guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the driveway guy. And then we finally finished a bunch of little stuff. And then we went on our walk. And
but Nick, it's very funny. What often happens with Mandy, I'm asleep because I go to bed between 12 and 1. I try to practice sleep hygiene and go to bed at the same time and wake up, other than this weird adjustment from Singapore. By the time I'll get up at 9, he will have walked the dog. He will have accomplished 4 or 5 projects.
I ran over my lines for the movie that I'm going to do.
Yeah,
so, I
he will
did
have
that.
cleaned the porch. He will have reorganized the weight room. He will have accomplished what it would take a normal person a week to do. So I feel like a total sloth.
But
I just woken up and said hello.
But by the time she wakes up, we're ready to do something.
She's ready to go to sleep.
I've got everything done. So I feel like I've accomplished what I had desired to accomplish during the day, except for exercise. And then I need to exercise.
That sounds great.
I'm a little worried. You look like we're boring the hell out of you.
No. I love this. I guess I have resting pensive face, so it's just you'll get used to that. It's
pensive face.
Wow.
Thinking.
Yeah.
Are you a British citizen?
I have dual nationality. So
does my oldest son.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was born at Queen Charlotte's Maternity Hospital the same week that Prince
William
was born. And William got all the attention.
I mean, it hardly seems fair. Does he sort of ponder on that parallel life that he could have had if he'd...
Oh, no, he's quite happy not to be a king or a royal. But he's very glad to have dual citizenship.
I don't know about that. I don't know if he's happy not being a king.
I think so, honey.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some downsides to monarchy, I think, for everybody. Boy. Whether you're the...
Yeah.
Do you interview people in other walks of life, like brain surgeons, road workers, politicians, gardeners, monks?
I feel like I should now that you've said that, but it's mostly within the creative fields that I interview people.
And why is that?
I think because I have always been interested in them, and I feel like I hopefully have a way of talking to them that means that my questions are interesting and informed, whereas I'm definitely a curious person, but if I were to interview a gardener, I feel like my questions would be idiotic. It would be just like the most entry-level nonsense.
Yeah.
But I do believe that each person is fascinating. It's just about finding that entry point.
Curiosity.
No offense, but I'm so curious. I don't know. They tell us who to call because we're doing this publicity for stuff.
Yeah.
So this is a podcast, right?
This is a podcast, yes.
So people tune in knowing that they're going to hear showbiz people talking with you. Yeah. I just wish you I think you'd have more fun because I've talked to showbiz people, and let me tell you, it ain't worth it. I think you'd have more fun calling up a gardener, any gardener or monk or brain surgeon or, cook and saying, listen, I don't know anything about gardening, monking, cooking, road paving. What should I know?
I have a better idea, Nick.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't listened to your podcast. I love the premise of it, which I find really interesting.
What was the premise again?
That you're asking people things that you haven't heard before. That he's asking questions that are unusual out of his own curiosity, not knowing that he'd get us to talk about
I like that too.
Bathroom habits. 20 years ago, 2 friends and I, one of them was a writer on The View, one of them was an independent documentary producer, asked me what I thought of a cultural show, like with Wendy Wasserstein and Frank Rich. And I said, boring, boring, boring. We already know what Wendy thinks about stuff. We know what he thinks. What I never see, Nick, And I offer this to you as an appendage to what I'm
Free.
sure
You don't
is a
know.
great-
You don't owe her any percentage.
Yeah.
on this.
I am dying to hear cross conversations with people that don't talk to each other.
Mm.
You know, I've had really interesting
Watch-
conversations. Sorry, I almost poked his eye out. Friend of mine, I was talking one day and she said, Kath, watch it. You almost poked my eye out. And I said, ooh, getting touchy in our old age, right? And then I called a few days later and said, I'm really sorry. I almost poked my eye out when I was just But I had an amazing conversation with a young man named Enrique who started a business upstate cleaning air pumps,
Mhm.
Air purifier.
Air purifier.
Mini splits.
Yeah.
Mini splits. The heat and the cold.
And another really interesting conversation with a young guy that was working for our pest control person who turned out to really want to be a writer,
Okay.
And what I've been longing for all those years, and we never managed to do it, but I did amazing research, was the idea of having a circle like a theatrical person, a split pump person, people from different classes and backgrounds looking for commonality. What do you have in common that makes you want to keep going, or what interests you, or be able to say, I never thought of that. I can't stand the divisions.
I also think that
have.
we may be doing a podcast as well. And I think it would be interesting if you had real cross-pollination of people that we shared a podcast on occasion, meaning you're going to have Mickey Mouse on your podcast and we're going to have Bozo the Clown on ours. Yeah. And then we all talk together and realize that, that this is like speaking to people in government.
It's so weird, Nick.
That was funny.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. Yes, it was funny. I was thinking internally.
Let it land, woman. Let it land.
I apologize.
Let him ask another question.
I feel like it's a familiar thing to have to tell my spouse that something I said was funny. So I'm sorry, Mandy.
No worries.
A lot of relating there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question that I haven't asked anybody else yet. And this is a question that I think is, maybe it's sort of wrong-headed or foolish, but I think it's complicated for me. So when somebody dies, should you or should you not delete their contact information from your phone?
Not. I love my favorite line in all of literature was written by Oscar Hammerstein for the book of a musical called Carousel. Mm-hmm. And the line is, and we always say this to people who lose a loved one, as long as there's one person on earth who remembers you, it isn't over. So I keep all those names in my book. I would never erase them. And on top of that, I say all their names daily in a meditation prayer to just keep them with me.
My mother died when I was 25 years old, Nick, and I still have her address book.
Wow.
I sometimes smell the address book. It smells like our garage from the San Fernando Valley. It's weird, probably moldy and dangerous to smell. I don't know. Different people have different ways of keeping memories alive and people alive, but that's really interesting. I don't delete anybody.
Yeah, I don't either. It feels slightly odd to keep them, but at the same time, it feels weirdly disloyal to delete them and sort of like a betrayal of the relationship that I had.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think that's true.
You're talking to people in show business. You said you don't delete their recordings or their films or their television shows or their interviews. They're kept in some kind of way. They're kept in easier ways because of digitization, et cetera.
Yeah. Although I have to say, I worry that this movement from physical media to digital media, it feels very tenuous to me.
Yeah.
And whatever future we're headed into, and we're like, oh, we don't need the print of that. We now have it digitized.
Or if there's some kind of like lightning strike or backward electrical impulse somewhere, things could just get erased.
Also, John Caro, the great biographer, was talking about what he is really concerned about and finds tragic is the digitization of everything. He said the receipts that he found at the Johnson Library, led him to all sorts of interesting financial help that Lyndon did with people in the hill country and relationships that he developed. And who decides what's important to digitize and not digitize and just throw away? And look what's happened with the demise of all the small local newspapers.
Yeah.
It is such a surrender to fascism as far as I'm concerned, not to put it too boldly, but it is. You do not know what's happening locally anymore. They're not hiring local people. You don't have people involved with your community, do you know?
Yeah.
And I find the whole notion of us being programmed or neuralinked. There was a phenomenal play called Antiquities. Did you get to see it?
I didn't, no.
It took you from 1610 and Mary Shelley with a story of Frankenstein to 2170, Nick, where it was the Neuralink that everybody was getting because everybody's doing that. So that is, I think the lack of press is, and I don't think, it's just like when the printing press came around. Everybody was afraid.
Tell Nick asked about the phone numbers in your phone.
Yeah.
Do you keep them after people pass?
Yeah.
Tell Nick why you don't have your mother's diary.
Oh, because when I was 10 years old, it was a summer day and I was bored and I leaned over and opened this, drawer that was in a built-in thing, saw a big, huge book. I didn't know what it was. I opened it. It was handwriting and my mother came around and said, okay, that's it. And she took her diary out and burnt it.
Oh, wow.
In our incinerator in the backyard. It's plagued me since I was 10 years old. It was just 68 years ago.
And what did she say to you?
When I asked her when she was dying, I said, Mom, what was in that diary you burnt? Because at 10, I thought I must be adopted. That was the only thing I could think.
Right.
She said, look at your face, my face. No, that's not it. She said, just a bunch of lies about boys I said I kissed, but never did. She had a little weird relationship with sexuality, which, it's caused some issues. And also, Nick, just what we've given away in terms of our signature, credit cards. We didn't think what it meant when these things came in, Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. We'll swipe it. We'll just scribble. What about handwriting analysts? What about Emily Dickinson's poems on the backs of envelopes? What about fraud? When your signature meant something, DocuSign is not my signature. Doesn't look remotely like it.
Right.
We just succumbed to these marvels and wonders that supposedly made our lives easier, but took away the idiosyncratic nature, One of my best friends is English, and we had a correspondence for 40 years. And she's an artist. It would take me a week to decipher her handwriting, but it was Jenny on the page, Yeah. And I was me on the page. Then came computers. So we just do a fast thing.
Yep.
And now we don't look differently in our correspondence.
Yeah.
It's a whole way that individuals are slowly not even realizing how we agreed to be erased from our own idiosyncratic selves is what I think. And aren't you glad you asked that?
No. Can I go back to the thing you were saying about your mother? One of the questions that I'm always interested in is there a trait or a behavior that either of you inherited from your parents that, because I have stuff where I'm like, oh my God, I hear my mother in this, something that I just said. Do you have things that you say or do that are inherited, sort of learned behaviors from your parents that drive you crazy or drive other people crazy?
Yeah, it's hard, I think, when your parents die so young to recognize things you didn't love about them or that you see in yourself. My mother loved to talk. I have been made aware in my family that I overtalk, as you've experienced in this podcast. But I find conversation with people really
But she married a singer who needs to rest his voice.
Yeah, so it works out okay.
Good pairing.
I think I might overtalk like my mother sometimes. I think I could be very critical and judgy that my mother could, but I've worked on that to sort of notice when that's appropriate and earned and not.
What about gestures or sounds of your voice or her voice or thing?
My dad was incredibly patient, which I think I had when my kids were little.
Where's the picture of you and your mom talking to each other that your brother took?
I don't know. It's somewhere.
Well, that's one of the great photos because you can just see the two of them are the same person.
Yeah,
they're both leaning in.
Yeah, she was.
They're locked.
I was leaving an insane person I was with, and she was trying not to tell me how happy she was that I was leaving him. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I never met her mother because her mom and dad died the same year my dad died, and so we met right after that.
Wow.
And but I felt when I saw that photograph that her brother Stephen took, I felt I know exactly who your mother is.
But honey, what did you used to say if you lost your temper? Do you remember?
If I lost my temper,
sometimes.
Oh, that's my mother's voice.
If he got angry in a certain way, he would hate it because it was what
I would hear her voice. I would sound like her
when he was angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I do love is I haven't had this for a while, but I used to have it a lot when I'd be driving, and sometimes I'd see my left hand, and I remember I went, "That's my dad's hand. That looks just like my dad." And now that I'm 73 and he died at 52, I don't have reference because my hand looks like a 73-year-old's hand.
Yeah.
But I remember so clearly when I thought, that looks like that's my dad's hand.
Yeah.
But Nick, it's interesting because our older son, Isaac, who's named after my father, Irving, he is so much like my father that I used to remember thinking, oh my God, Dad, you came back in such a direct way. I mean, Isaac's a major nature person. We didn't become that until many years later. He got chemistry, he got physics, which my dad did. He has the patience of 10 saints with children, and with people, which neither of us have.
You have the patience of a infinite number of saints with children.
Okay.
There's nobody like her.
Okay.
She did it with our kids. She's doing it with our grandchildren. She's the ever ready bunny. There's never any downshift in energy. It's unbelievable. Scientists should study her.
Yeah.
I'm ready to pass out and she just never stops. It's unbelievable. These kids, both our kids and now our grandchildren, are the luckiest people on earth because of the way this woman attends to their interests. I remember my buddy Ted Chapin, who was Theodore Steinway Chapin's grandson. And Ted was my roommate. He became the head of the Rodgers and Hammerstein Corporation, et cetera. But when we were young and I was still in school and we were sharing an apartment on the Upper West Side, I went to his family's place in Long Pond, Massachusetts, where Ted used to say, his mother used to say, we landed.
No, people used to say, Betty, why was your country place so far from the city? And she'd say, well, my dear, we landed there.
Yeah, she was talking about, Plymouth. This is where the ships are, where the pilgrims landed. And he took me to his grandmother's place, who was Theodore Steinway Chapin, who invented Steinway piano, his wife. And we sat in the house in the living room. And every day, this woman, no matter how cold it was, would dive off the dock into Long Pond and go swimming. And I met her when she was well into her 80s. I brought you there. Didn't you meet her or not?
No, honey, I never met her.
Anyway, she would. You sure I didn't? You didn't?
Yeah.
Well, you would never forget it. Anyway, but she'd sit there like Kathryn, and she'd say, "Tell me about yourself." And it was most unusual because I don't know if I ever sat with a human being who locked me in and genuinely wanted me to tell her about myself. And I was quite lost for words initially. And then she found a way to just make me start talking. And I don't think, you know what, in all honesty, I think I do that. My kids make fun of me because they say I give people the third degree. Like if I meet you, I want to know everything about you.
How'd you come here? Why do you have dual citizenship?
How'd you pick this career? Why are you doing a podcast?
How's Brooklyn?
Yeah, how's Brooklyn? Who are your kids? Who's your wife? What did mom and dad do? You have siblings. I want to know it all. And I'm not.
That is like Udi, honey.
Yeah, it's like Udi. And I'm not asking you to be nosy.
You're
and
curious.
I'm not asking you to dodge the conversation so you don't talk to me about me that I have to say. I'm not doing that. I'm really curious. It's like in politics. If we walk into a room, Kathryn loves to have political discussions. So if she finds out that you're of the opposite political persuasion of her ideology, so it's whatever, it's not left, right, or center, whatever your ideology is in the political world, she will oftentimes put great energy toward you to try to change your philosophy.
Or just hear what it is.
No. I disagree. Okay. Or try to change your opinion and essentially your vote. I'm not interested in that at all. I am interested in why you think the way you think and where it came from and why you think something so basic is the polar opposite of how I may think about something so basic. And I'm so fascinated by that. I don't want to change your philosophy or how you vote because there's enough votes, in my humble opinion, on both sides to, win an argument, but in a fair way. But I don't need to change your opinion. I want to know where it came from. Mm-hmm. I find that fascinating. And Kathryn wants to know where it came from, but also believes she can change it. I don't believe I can change it.
Interesting.
Nick, what else? We've so over-talked here.
No, literally the function of this podcast is for people to talk and for me to hopefully be as silent as possible. But I wanted to ask you, we touched on your curiosity about human beings, some possibly slightly concerned views on where we're headed and where we are. Do you think that as creative people, you are more able to tolerate staring into the void than other people? Or is there a natural tendency to...
What do you mean by staring into the void?
The end of things and death. Time.
Death, but also, I'm of the opinion that we are in a steep decline in this country. That's not necessarily a fringe opinion, but I'm just interested about the makeup of creative people, the way that their brains function, and that curiosity, that ability to examine where we are, and also, I guess, self-examine to some extent, whether that is greater and why, if it is.
I don't know. I always feel self-conscious even defining myself as a creative person, but I am, I guess, I think it works both ways. I try to stay away from the abyss. I think the pendulum swings, and I think this is certainly the worst moment I've ever experienced as a sentient being in the country. Mm-hmm. I believe in the resilience of human goodness and creativity and the need. I think people feel much better when they're loving each other than when they're hating each other. I think
tearing each other down.
I don't know. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, they are doing so much damage so fast to research, to science, to education, that it is very overwhelming. So I can use my imagination to picture, there was this funny little video the other day. It was from the back. So you saw all these white-haired, like 60s people, my generation, with some ice guys cosplaying that they were in the military in some San Diego neighborhood. I just showed up on my feed. I don't know what it was. And these guys had machine guns and masks, and they were backing up, and these people my age were going, get out of here. Get out of here. Fascists, Nazis, get out of this neighborhood. We're not giving up any of our wonderful people to you. Get out. These guys all backed up, And I just thought, yep, I was lucky enough to be part of the generation that saw us right real wrongs. Mm-hmm. Civil rights, stopping Vietnam, the first Earth Day. And I feel badly with all the profound misinformation and sort of burial in misinformation and horror that people resist and just end up in despair. But I think a lot of good things are happening, though you don't hear it very much. There's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of pushback. But, and there may be an upside to America not thinking that it's so exceptional and fabulous when we were always doing horrible things all around the world. I'm not going to make any big decisions until 2026, when I'm hoping we can regain sanity and start repairing, but it won't ever be the same in some places. So I think the trouble with the creative brain, my positive creativity can imagine celebration and healing. And my dark side of it imagines, really, I got to put some cameras around here and armed and, running with my kids across some boat like our grandparents did,
Right.
So it works both ways, I think.
I need to be as positive as I can possibly muster, because the way my brain works and over dramatizes and imaginizes possibilities is too fast and too frightening for me to be with. And so I tried to be positive, and like last night, I failed. And I was in my chair right next to where we're sitting, weeping, and couldn't get a hold of myself. My wife, as I wish all had some partner in their life, just sat near me and said very little and held my hand. And that was all I needed, to be allowed to weep and hold another human being's hand, and feel not alone.
Yeah.
And that's my dog asking to come in. But it's also very important that I find ways to spread positivity and hope and optimism. I don't know how not to do that. The songs I choose to sing, I'm just a mailman, but they're written by really gifted geniuses, men and women who were profound philosophers with lyrics and music that really, in many cases, wrote the prayers that are part of my personal Torah.
Mhm.
And I need to visit them on occasion. And I think I have a concert career because, as the mailman, there are people out there who like to be with other people who want to hear those ideas that those people left behind. Many of them didn't realize their wishes for themselves, but they left them for all of us to contemplate and ponder and wish together.
And Nick, it's that Mary Oliver. What are you going to do with your one, marvelous life or something? I feel if I start and end my day with total despair and terror and fear, I've let these forces rob me of my life.
Yeah.
And also my brother, who was a Buddhist monk for real, the Mount Trevor Monastery, used to tell me, because I certainly had fears before this regime, he said, those aren't real. They're just fears. Don't act on fantasies of something happening to my kids when they're totally fine. God forbid something happens, you'll deal with that. So when those dark forces come in to rob me of the life of my day, I try very hard to say, wow, it's very hot and the flowers are blooming and the peonies are out.
Yeah.
And there's laughter in this world as well as sorrow. And there are artists and there are people practicing kindness and goodness, even if our mainstream media is not emphasizing any of that,
But there's so many pockets in our existence and in the history of humankind that can nourish us of ideas, thoughts, hearts, and minds left behind for us to embrace. When I do my concert life, I work very hard not to bring current events and politics, which they're one and the same these days, into the concert, because they're there, period, in all our lives when we just show up in the building. And I really want all of us to have the privilege of listening to higher thoughts than we're hearing in far too many quarters of existence. It's so important that we hear the brightest hearts and minds of humanity wishing for compassion and empathy for our species, and not to parade around as the dumbest species on the planet.
I do think sometimes, Nick, we are devolving at a rapid pace. And maybe that's why we're going to become the damn machines we're addicted to, because we just can't deal with the messiness of the glorious messiness of being human, our nuance and our complexity and our hurt feelings, Oh my God. I can't get over the texting world, where you don't see the tears or hug somebody or walk out of a room and have to come back.
And you have to be in a hurry. You don't even say, oh my God, you just say OMG.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I am all for practicing. I want to have t-shirts, fully human, practice being human,
Get a dog and learn how to behave from your dog.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. Well, the animals will teach us.
They are.
Trees, 300-year-old trees that communicate underground, so we can learn from them
Put
too.
your ear to them and listen good and hard.
So I wanted to ask you, sort of tying into all this, and Mandy, you were talking about meditation before. Are there things that you actively do to sort of help you stay sane in everyday life and stave off the darkness or the other bad thoughts or impulses?
Yeah, I try to walk for at least an hour to an hour and a half a day. I try to vocalize every day, to sing and have the air go in and out of me. I try to go over some songs to ignite my brain and exercise that tissue in my brain to remember. And then I try to learn words, which for my business, I need to learn words. But I encourage anyone to learn a poem you love or a recipe you love, because I've been taught and seen scientific evidence that it helps ward off Alzheimer's and dementia. And then I really like, even when I'm very annoyed with this person next to me, I like just being with her, doing nothing. And to have a moment doing nothing. And I get pretty testy if she's on the phone talking to other friends, doing this, doing that, needing to go get this for these people, and what about me? Can't we just have a minute together? Can you put the fucking phone down?
Yeah.
I try to meditate. I fail. I certainly try and exercise every day, and spend time with anybody I love for part of the day, whether it's my 3-year-old grandchild or 9-month-old or I was getting there, honey, before you did
Not
that.
quick enough.
And just know that nothing's predictable. We have lost so many friends lately and so many close people, young and old. It's that Buddhist thing. This is what we have, this moment. This is what's real. What is happening here? I can go out and, get hit by a tree limb. And you can say, my God, I just talked to her. And the fear of that stops you from living your life. So I just try and ward off what I described earlier as my active imagination, my actively dire imagination, and try and
or
push
you
it
could also
away.
name it as the bullshit of existence. Her brother was a Zen Buddhist monk who we adored. And he had a philosophy that he taught our family, which was a Buddhist idea of when you polish the stone, meaning don't think about what's ahead and don't think about what was behind. Just talk to Nick.
Or when you
right now and be with Kathryn.
Or don't get on this thing when you're talking to Nick. Or I did make a few notes.
Make the dog food, talk to the dog, sit with the dog, feed the dog. Play with your grandson, focus on your grandson, swim with your grandson, walk with your grandson, or, hold on to your granddaughter, polish that stone. And it's so easy in Buddhism. If you try to meditate, they ask you, can you just concentrate on your breath for, I think, 10 seconds without going to all these other thoughts, which they refer to as monkey mind. And so it's really hard for the human mind.
Especially with these things.
What my brother-in-law's teacher, Dido, said to him once, of all the species on the planet, which is the only one that doesn't rest
while awake?
Mm-hmm. And the answer to that is mankind and womankind. And it's really interesting that the housefly, watch the housefly, still as can be.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I could talk to you guys for literally days and not run out of things to talk to. It's been
I love meeting
such a pleasure.
you, Nick. Really, I'm sitting here fantasizing. I just wrote down how to find Nick in real life.
I would love to make that happen.
Let's do that before we hang up. But let me ask you one other thing. When you do the podcast like this and you're in half the picture and we're in half the picture, do your listeners just listen to the podcast, or are they also, some of them, watching it on their phone or computer? Like
they're only going to hear this. So
there's never the image coupled with it.
That may be something that we introduce in the future, but for now, I wouldn't want to subject people to, I have a face for radio, so I'm happy to leave it at that.
I find you have a very lovely face, Nick.
Beautiful face.
Well, I hope we get the opportunity to have this conversation, and you were just a lovely person. I don't say that to everybody we talk to.
Nick, tell us how to get a hold of you.
I'll be around for Tribeca, so maybe we can grab a coffee or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
We're there. We're doing a bunch of things all during.
And no pressure, my dear, if you're
Oh, my goodness. It would be such a pleasure to talk more.
If not, then get our contact info, and, we're in the neighborhood.
Amazing.
Thanks so much to Kathryn Grody and Mandy Patinkin for talking with me, and thanks to you for listening. Seasoned has its final Tribeca Film Festival screening on Sunday, June 15th. So if you're in New York City, go support it so the show gets picked up for a series. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the theme music is by The Range. If you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe to the Talkcast podcast, and keep your eyes and ears peeled for another of these special Nobody's Ever Asked Me That episodes, as there's tons more good stuff in the works.